Oh, you should be coming on pretty soon, dude. How much do you smoke?
This will be a little demonstration of that. Listen up. That was my skull. I'm so wasted.
That was Jeff Spicoli, and he is the first hype beast in sneakers. The sneaker game might be focused on Dunks or Air Force Ones right now, but before all of that, the first hype sneaker release was actually a pair of Vans.
Against Gill, the crowd on its feet. Allen for the win!
Welcome to the Sneaker History Podcast.
For many of the popular sneakers that we love, their story is retold for every retro release that comes along. But one shoe that has not been told in its entirety with each retro is actually the Vans Slip-on. Sneaker game has been focused on Dunks and Air Force Ones for a number of years now, and obviously Air Jordans. There's a ton of pop culture references to sneakers that don't really make it into the world of sneakerhead. For many of the popular shoes that we love, the story behind the shoe is as much a part of each retro release as it is the origins themselves. For instance, the Nike Air Force One has 1982 across the lace rubre on almost every new release. But the same summer that the Air Force One originally came out in 1982, there was actually a shoe that was even more hyped than that Air Force One. This is a story of the Vans Checkerboard Slip-on. Fast Times at Ridgemont High is a coming-of-age comedy that stars some of the most significant actors of the time, including Jennifer Jason Leigh, Judge Reinhold, and Phoebe Cates. However, the perpetually stoned Jeff Spicoli, played by Sean Penn, was the only name that stood the test of time for the last 40 years. Released on August 13, 1982, Spicoli's portrayal of a Southern Californian surfer is still celebrated to this day. For sneakerheads, the story of Jeff Spicoli and his Vans Checkerboard Slip-on, and how Vans capitalized on one of the biggest product placement opportunities in the history of sneakers, has largely been forgotten. First, it may seem obvious that 1982 was a completely different time, especially when it comes to sneakers. There weren't release dates, there weren't blogs, there wasn't social media, there weren't modern conveniences that we as sneakerheads used to find access and information about sneaker releases. The only time you really heard about sneakers in those days, other than the occasional commercial, was through catalogs like JCPenney or Sears or sometimes Eastbay. In fact, it was rare that people outside of sports even thought about sneakers. Unless you were playing basketball or tennis, you didn't think of sneakers on a regular basis. Shoes were just utilitarian back then. And we think of basketball as the primary sport that drove the sneaker business. However, skateboarding and Vans specifically really took off slightly before basketball became as mainstream as it is today. The birth of sneakerhead culture has been debated in our Discord many times. Ever since sneakers became mainstream, people have debated whether you can love them, whether you hate them, whether you should even care about them, and how important they are. If there's a culture, is there a culture? To me personally, none of those things really matter. It's all about connecting with people, and if sneakers do that for you, that's what's important. But I do think that there should be way more credit given to Vans and the skateboarding movement of the 70s and 80s than there is today. Let's talk a little bit about Fast Times at Ridgemont High. The reason why the film was so popular is because it was very aspirational for people outside of California. It was really one of the earliest times when the California dream was sold to a new generation of potential shoppers, buyers, sneakerheads, if you want to call them that, before they existed. But it was really about inspiring other people to move to California more so than anything else. It showed this kind of wild high school life that kids were living back then. When Fast Times at Ridgemont High was originally released in theaters, Vans gave away 1,000 pairs of the now iconic Checkerboard Slip-ons through a raffle with partner radio station. In hindsight, it might be the first time we've ever seen hype used to sell a sneaker. Not only that, the I'm Wasted scene where Spicoli opens up his pair of Checkerboard Slip-ons and smacks himself in the forehead with them could easily be considered one of the world's first sneaker unboxing. Although thankfully the tradition of sneaker unboxing has become a little bit more professional over the years. Throughout the film, Sean Penn's character can be seen living the California dream in an unmistakable Vans Checkerboard Slip-on. Something that nowadays, with the internet giving us access to what life is like nearly anywhere on the planet, is lost in translation. Films back then were aspirational to many people who lived in other places across the country and around the world. While the stoner aspect might not have been as socially acceptable back then, a pair of Vans slip-ons was just a catalog order away for those that looked at Fast Times as a depiction of the Southern California lifestyle of palm trees, beaches, and surfing. When it comes to product placement today, every film has sneakers in it. Whether you look at the 90s with Space Jam and Batman and Nike creating individual shoes for each of those movies, or something more modern like Spider-Man and Miles Morales wearing his pair of Jordan 1s where Nike released a shoe to go along with it, the trend of sneakers in films couldn't be bigger, in my opinion. So, looking back, did Jeff Spicoli and the product placement from Vans actually work? You'd be surprised. It seems like minimal effort, and making only 1,000 pairs seems like low return by today's standards. But Vans co-founder Paul Van Doren once said that the revenue for the company prior to Fast Times at Ridgemont High was around $20 million a year. Not long after the film released, the company was on track to sell $40 to $45 million annually. By today's standards, only Jordan Brand with Nike and the Adidas Yeezy brand can claim that much of an impact on the bottom line of one of the biggest footwear brands in the world. 40 years later, the checkerboard aesthetic is still one of the most important pieces to Vans' company culture and revenue. All thanks to Sean Penn's depiction of a weed-smoking California high school student and some strategically placed sneakers. My name's Nick Ingvall. Thanks for watching Sneaker History. If you enjoyed this, hit that subscribe button, leave a comment, let us know what your first pair of Vans were, and check out the links in the description to join our community or find some of our merch. Appreciate you watching. We'll catch you on the next one. Peace.